in the process of taking care of it, we can just take care of it, and it doesn't really cost anybody anything.
Yeah, I think some of them are more, I mean, I'm giving examples, but all of the legitimate things that you've done, that highway has done, but, you know, the community garden wants a water tank moved, and historical society wants items moved, and there's a compressor going out on an AC unit in town offices, and I think there was something in last month's report. Yeah, I think it's one of the, highway department, I think, is one of the Swiss Army knives of the town, and if it's mechanical or physical, there's some connection back, and just trying to figure out how to best balance those off and not spend an hour trying to get approval on something that take 5 minutes to do, but then also not spending 20 hours on a project that wasn't on the priority list and something that was promised by the end of the week now can't get done because there's not enough time left. And finding the right balance for those, I think, is important.
Yeah, I think obviously this doesn't happen without the half of the relationships need to be developed. And if you came to me with a project of sizable scale, obviously there would have to be some further discussion, but if it's a half an hour little project, you need to squeeze those things in and it doesn't hurt anybody or cost anybody. Especially since I can do everything.
Do you have any other, I've got a couple questions. Do you have any other questions that came up?
No. We missed number 3 though, unless you want.
Yeah, that's where I'm circling back to.
All right,
Do you
go
have
ahead.
anything?
No, but I might ask a follow-up.
Okay. All right, so, do you feel you have all the qualifications for this job? And if not, how do you plan to get them?
I feel I have most of them. Currently I do not have my CDL. Which hopefully that's an issue to get that next year. Probably my area of most or least experience is snow plowing, and I know that's a big thing. It's probably the first part of the project of the job. I have plowed basically my whole career. I just never really had to manage whole towns with the road. I think that I would probably bring my experience from a lot of the construction projects I've done. We call them weekend specials, where we'll close the highway down to rebuild a bridge or divert or a new off ramp. So I'm very familiar with scheduling 48, 72-hour projects with multiple shifts, dozens of employees, dozens of trucks, equipment. So a snowstorm would be very similar. So it's really just a case of learning how long before the storm you start pre-treating, who's on the staff to schedule crews, and kind of roll through the project. So you have people, if it doesn't have to be a long duration storm, you have people on the back end to go up, clean up, without burning people out. So and kind of all of that is, it's condensed because we don't really know a storm impact until really maybe 18 hours before. So you kind of have to have your schedule in mind and how you want to attack this thing, and then as you see the storm approach, you got to fine tune it and give everybody their time slot. Go away.
No, all right.
I was expecting one, but
It went away?
didn't materialize.
Okay. So to kind of piggyback on that, so you need experience plowing in the big trucks, and other staff may also need that experience. So the training will rely on a couple of the folks that are already there. So how are you going to manage time of taking time for Chris to train me how to drive a truck, when now this takes away Chris's ability to do her job during the day and my ability to learn how to do a job during the day?
There has to be some downtime. Not necessarily downtime, but slower periods. And that's when you have to squeeze it in. It just has to be scheduled, and this is what we're doing this afternoon. Take 2 hours and go for a ride.
Bob?
As you've been on construction projects, there's 1,000 things happening at once. How do you respond to sort of overwhelming demands? How do you decompress when you're out of that? I try to get a sense of the style when potentially you could have several different departments asking things at once, and how you balance all of that out.
It's hard to describe, you just deal with it. It's, I have pressure on myself all day, every day, pretty much. I mean, every once in a while there's a slow day, but the industry I work in is just high pressure all the time. There's always too much work to do, not enough time to do it. We have the fortune of working overtime, pretty much whenever we need to. Understanding that, the budget here is much tighter, so overtime is most likely reserved for snow events, ice events. It's like any project, we just kind of, like we talked earlier, prioritize what's important and stop picking off items. And as you start checking them off the list, you kind of, things start to clear out and you kind of get some relief.
Margaret, do you have any, I don't want to ignore you.
Oh, I just have, I noted that Rob's a big fan of spreadsheets. So you said you keep spreadsheets for just about everything. Does that include your internal budget tracking? Or would you
Certainly,
make?
I would absolutely develop something, yeah.
Okay, that's good. And to touch on something, there was a question about understanding the systems that are in place. The town does have an established organizational chart and an established communications protocol. So we actually do have those systems that you could refer to and kind of brush up on.
Very good.
Yeah.
So now it's your time. What questions do you have of the four of us?
I think I know the answer to this question, but I wanted to find out the makeup of the current staff. I think there's a foreman, a few laborers, truck drivers, good five people on the staff full time.
So 5 including the superintendent. So you've got this.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
You have the superintendent. You have a foreman. You have a heavy equipment operator, laborer, driver, mechanic, combined positions, that's under the foreman, and then you have 2 laborer, driver positions right now. And on the building side, there is a part-time custodian, and we contract our routine maintenance custodial services with a contractor.
Okay. This is I guess, would be a seasonal question, but let's say spring through fall, what would be a typical week for the department? Cutting grass, lining edges of the roads.
I would say grounds, building walkthroughs, maybe working a little bit with our regional planning agency to try to do culvert counts, and the superintendent sits on the traffic safety advisory committee, so maybe participating in that on any potential road safety projects. Did I already say building walkthroughs to look and see what the maintenance needs are? I think
Road
some-
repair.
Yeah, road
Maintenance.
repairs, a hot top, so you'd probably want to have a road maintenance schedule. I don't know if you do that in your work now, but doing something, inventorying the roads and taking a look at road conditions. So I think those would be kind of standard
Okay.
projects.
I know some about the Chapter 90 program. Say in the past 3 or 4 years, what kind of projects have we undertaken using those funds?
Let me take that
Yeah.
one. Okay, so in the past 3 years, no Chapter 90 monies have been spent on road projects. So the town has essentially banked its annual Chapter 90 allocation. We just received another $191,000, I think, in this year's. So we banked that. And the town has been in a fortunate position too, where it has also appropriated supplemental funds for road projects, understanding that road projects are very expensive, and $191,000 is not going to go very far. So we've also put some of those funds aside, and the town routinely does that for hot top projects. So no road projects using chapter 90 have been done in the past few years, so that would be something that you'd probably wanna come in, look at, assess the condition of roads, maybe talk to the outgoing superintendent to find out what priority roads are here. And then you can use your estimative skills to determine what the cost of those projects might be.
Beyond, asphalt, do we have any projects in the pipeline or things that are a wish list of projects, things in town that we would like to see happen, as far as the road bridge go?
There's been a rotation, at least when I was on finance committee, there was a rotation in the budget to replace the culverts on the, kind of like on a regular basis, but a bunch of them were not in great shape. I haven't heard much, the last year's been focused on COVID and stuff, but there was plans to do that. That's at least the budget I'm aware of.
And there'll always be people who will say, come fix my road. You know, there's a big pothole in front of my driveway, come fix my road.
Remove my dead tree.
Yes, remove my dead trees. Big thing.
Oh, the trees, that's right.
Trees, there you go.
Trees.
You know, that question of, you know, now till fall,
Right.
trees.
Fighting Mother Nature,
Mm-hmm.
you know, potholes and
Yeah.
trees and roofs and.
We have the opportunity to avail ourselves of various grants too, and I don't know if you're familiar, you know, with preparing grant applications or administering them, but MassDOT has some grant programs, DEP has some grant programs. So there are some things that we could avail ourselves of in order to accomplish some of these projects. In fact, the town just recently received an efficiency and regionalization grant for a $178,000 bucket truck with the town of Clinton. So we'll be sharing resources with a neighboring community.
The last question I had is, anything in the department currently, anything that is not normally, what would you like to see done differently, or any changes made, in our department?
Would you like me to answer that just from an administrative perspective?
From an administrative perspective.
Okay, from an administrative perspective, I think there's opportunity, there's growth opportunity, I think, for all employees, across the board. And I think by offering, you know, various certifications and other incentives like that, I think that we can continue to build a team. As an administrator, I'm very, very focused on team, and I want to see incentives rather than disincentives for people to do that. So I think there's opportunity for that.
So more training for the staff.
Training and certifications in order to allow them to grow, and not just highway, but across the board.
Okay.
Yeah, I think those opportunities, I think, are very valuable.
I mean, besides highway stuff, highway guy, highway is also starting to take over responsibilities of cemetery mowing and things like that. So, you know, it's not just, I have to fix the roads, I have to cut the trees. It's, oh, look, here's another part of the job. So as Mario was saying, there might be opportunities, you know, to build within those, you know, to see how we can put it under one department so it's managed from one and not silos of information. You know, for me, you know, what to do differently, the highway, has always been a few folks who have always gone above and beyond to do whatever is needed for the town, which is great, but I don't wanna see people burnt out in the process, you know, for that. So, you know, kind of going back to one of your comments, it's the balance of what do I do, how do I work with them, how do I motivate them, you know, beyond the, therefore you must because I said so, for that. But, you know, this would be something if you were given a position that we look to you to say, talk to the folks. What do they want to see differently? You know, what can you do that's realistic and not, hey, we want to change our shirts to pink, type of thing. But, you know, what is going to be meaningful for them to stay, to grow, to potentially bring others with them, to make the department bigger
physical infrastructure, because the stuff is spread around 3 or 4 buildings around town. And whether or not there's better efficiencies from where they could be stored and where they can be maintained. I think those who build the teams, seeing what maintenance can be done in-house versus things we have to ship out for liability reasons and insurance reasons. I am bummed that the town built this really nice highway building, but then shrunk its size so it can't do the one thing it was designed to do, which was store all the vehicles in one building. But if we could reduce the footprint, so there's not as many buildings that need roofs and upgrades and painting and other things like that.
I mean, there's a lot that's going on with all the other departments, that we're working together. Energy is working on a grant to potentially look at solar to maybe offset the rather high cost of the electricity of the town barn, which the lovely town accountant in the back knows is my pet peeve. When I look at those electric bills, you open the door, whoosh, out it goes, type of thing. So, groups are starting to work together, almost like interdepartmentally, to say, hey, we're gonna do this, can you do this? Which is very nice to see. So instead of this mentality, it's now this mentality. Any other questions for us?
I think that's it.
Okay. Margaret, next steps?
Next steps. So, Rob, you're meeting with the select board tonight, and the select board will be discussing the path forward here. I will be contacting you one way or another in the next day or two, and we can talk a little more after the board has a chance to discuss this. I want to tell you how much I've appreciated meeting you in the preliminary interview, and then again tonight. We have 4 other members of the preliminary interview team here sitting in the audience behind you, and wanted to come to watch your interview too. So it'll be me who's in touch after the board has a chance to discuss this. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you, appreciate you coming
All right.
in. Lovely
Thank
meeting
you.
Good to see you again.
All right, next up, executive session. Do you want discussion here?
You want to go?
Okay, I don't know.
We have to do
I would
it.
invite it.
Session.
That's
Any discussion now or later has to be an open session.
Well, what are you thinking?
I don't know, Madam Chair.
That's not fair, I used to call you that, you can't turn that around on me.
Ballpark of this thing.
We're not there yet. Right. So that's a step that has to be done. There are a lot of,
References
I mean,
and
a lot of,
checks.
yeah, exactly, a lot of contingencies.
Yep.
So should we wait to see, should we wait for references to come back and any other preliminary items that need to be done before we continue our discussion?
Well, I mean, I think a discussion about the interview itself, the credentials themselves is
Mhm.
probably worth it while it's fresh in your minds. Everything else, I could certainly be tasked with, going back, getting the references.
These could be
Talking money.
contingent on the reference check.
All right. So any feedback on?
How fast can one really get a CDL?
I think it depends on the state right now, correct?
Right, so state of Massachusetts, someone who's highly motivated, assume highly motivation. Is that something?
It's hopefully by the first snow fly,
Right.
yes.
Well, I think maybe Margaret can have some political pull and maybe just get them in there quicker.
First comes the learner's permit, so
Right.
that can be scheduled right away. A learner's permit and then practice on the town vehicles. Scheduling the, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but scheduling the actual time for the test is going to take a few months. Of course, the person, taking the test needs to study up and learn the vehicle.
Right.
In February, the rules are changing. So what we want to do is we would want to, I don't want to say push, but push
Yeah.
for for every step to be done in order to try to get the CDL by winter. Because, again, in February, the rules are gonna be changing. It's gonna become a lot more expensive. Won't be able to use town trucks anymore. I don't think so anyway. As far as the
You
test.
can, but they want you to go through a tractor trailer school.
Yeah.
So most likely you have to use their vehicles. It's only the state of Massachusetts for this. But the learner's permit, you can go in and take that tomorrow if you really wanted to. It's just getting into a registry to do it and set that appointment up. But I believe, I'm not positive on this, but if he got his appointment before February, that's what you want. Which sounds like a long ways away, but it
That's
ain't.
not.
You know?
No.
205 days.
But who's counting?
And he seems motivated to do it. He's driven trucks before, not on the road. That's what he said, so I'm sure he knows how to drive.
I'd be shocked if he didn't know how to drive a truck.
Exactly.
He's
Doing
been
all
doing it-
construction
he's been
all
doing
this
it-
time?
He's been doing it all his life. just
Yes.
Illegally, off the road, whatever.
But-
It's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
You have to, Massachusetts just wants you, good old green.
And so is Berlin.
Yes, and
Yeah.
so is the.
So-
Yeah.
You want a proper license.
That's right, that's right, Mr.
Good point.
Any other comments about the process? I mean, he was very candid, very open, and I liked his response to, I don't know. You know, when asked if you get hit with, hey, can you do me a favor? Because we know that happens, unfortunately.
I don't know if he was clear on whether it was a neighbor asking it, or I think he said
I said a committee.
committee member.
Yeah.
That's a little different. I think I'm just as impressed, if not more, than I was when I was in the first interview with him. I think he's a good communicator, and he will be with the guys. He's sharp, quick on his feet.
In the first interview, could we offer more specific? Because we asked a couple questions for examples and stuff, and we talked about process, and those answers were decent. I was sort of hoping for stories. I didn't really get it. There was a good chance if he gave a story about a specific project, it would use technical language that I couldn't follow anyway. But I was kind of hoping for.
He probably gave more specifics than the other
Yes.
interviewees.
Yes.
I did like your question about Scrum and Agile.
Yes, which he
Which one?
dodged,
I had.
Which he dodged.
Management
Which he
style.
dodged, yes.
Correct.
But that management style is supposed to project management style, but.
I liked one of the questions he asked you, what is your timeline for getting things done?
Yep.
He didn't ask that like culverts.
Right.
He wasn't aware of that at the thing, so he asked.
Yep.
He asked questions, and Paul was there, and he did ask questions when we interviewed him too.
Yeah.
And he wasn't afraid to say, no, I haven't done it, but I will learn it. You know?
In my hiring over the years, I've always loved crossover skills. People who have skills in the industry that's similar enough, but slightly different, because you'll bring a different mindset that will find issues. And he'll have to learn some of ours, because it's not like we're entirely going to be a for-profit highway construction company.
Correct.
But it brings a different perspective that I think is generally healthy to bring in.
If I may, one common thread through at least my listening of all the questions you folks asked of him, I got that he had a thought process that was attached to whatever the answer was.
Mhm.
He may not have had the answer, but he clearly indicates to me that he thinks about things and will do whatever research he has to. He's not the type of guy that's gonna wanna do a bad job. There's just no question.
Yes.
Just to add to that, how carefully he worded
Yeah.
Yes.
this last question, which is a good thing, for things come out of people's mouths. You need to think about what you're going to say.
And he's right, the projects he's listed as part of his resume, as far as we've done, are high stress, successes, not.
Correct.
Big time.
Failure's not an option sort of projects that are.
Replacing a bridge over the Mass Pike and you got 2 days to do it, yeah,
Right,
failure's
right.
not an option.
I've done that, and it it can be stressful at times,
Yep.
especially not me, but the supervisor, because I'm lower. Yeah, that's your problem, you know, and he handles it very good. And I think he will be excellent with the guys, because he said, everybody is different.
Yep.
And it's how you treat that person differently.
Well,
As we all know, I'm different from you.
right.
Just a tad, but we find a way to make it, but we find a way to make it work. You know,
Correct.
Because we have a common goal, correct.
Correct.
And finding what he was talking about delegating to people, delegating the projects that they're best at, and he fills in the gaps.
Correct.
Because it's not, because his boss, he could take the projects that are most exciting to him, and then the
That
staff.
was,
gets
that was a
something
good
that's not.
answer.
Yes,
That
he
was-
did- he did
And that's
think
what he
about it.
should do, is fill in the gaps.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 And letting, and again, if people like the project and are good at it, they're likely to succeed at it, because you put people in projects they're not great at, you can ruin that.
Go south.
There was one question I wish I would have asked, which is commonly asked at the end of an interview, is if we were to offer you this job, when could you start?
I was tempted, as much as we want, in the long run, no, if we want to hire someone who's probably gonna be here 5 or 6 years, if they had, it takes them 2 months or 1 week and several years, that's not gonna make a big.
No,
difference,
no, but it will make a
Yeah.
difference to our planning.
It does make a difference to our planning
Yes.
and what transition plan,
Yes.
unless he can be here by
I
Friday.
think he's the type of person that would give 2 weeks.
I
Yes.
agree, I agree.
He's that type of honest
Yeah.
person,
Yep.
in my opinion. I'd want to give, would you want 2 weeks if he was gonna leave?
Well, yes, I was gonna say, and I've actually, in interviews, not hired someone because they said, oh, I'll just leave my job tomorrow. And
Right.
they're like, well, then you're gonna do that to me when you're turning
Correct.
out too, and I don't want, sometimes when people say, look, I have some projects going on, it's gonna take me a month to wrap them up, I wanna leave my employer whole, I'm like, then if you never left us, you're also gonna do the same for us, so, yeah.
Correct.
What would you like, Madam Chairwoman?
I love how you say that.
All right, if, I mean, are there any other comments, questions? Scott, Margaret,
I think checking references.
checking
Oh, yeah.
references?
Yeah. I emailed him today, and I don't blame him for not bringing the list of references, but I have asked him for professional and character references, so I'd like to see those and call all of those. And get a sense of what his notice requirements would be and his pay, you know, what the pay scale is he's looking at. I mean, of course, our budget document is a public document, so you can easily see what's offered, but have a conversation with him.
I think it was worthy of having that, because I don't see any fatal flaws that says we shouldn't continue on. I think we definitely should keep pursuing, keep going down this train.
It'll be a cold day in February when you get a candidate that rivals him.
Yeah,
With the job description we have out there, with no administrative help,
right,
pray to God.
yep,
And free up some free cash and get an admin.
yep,
That's the.
Because whoever you hire,
right.
they're gonna fail unless you do that.
Mhm.
And as a taxpayer and a citizen, the select board needs to be really clear on that. That's been a long-standing need. Dave Smith should have had an admin when he started. And, look how long that's gone on. And nothing is changing other than an individual. And unless we make these other changes, good luck.
Yep.
All right, so I'll close public discussion. There any type of motion that you wanna think about?
Yes, I would make a motion to hire Robert Horn on the conditions that Margaret mentioned as far as background check and references.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Put it up to a vote. Since you made the motion, I'll let you go first.
Do I have to say key five?
Yes, you do.
We're not executive session.
Ah!
We don't have to.
We all
Oh!
just say aye.
All right, can we just take a vote from the board?
Well, we can just say.
Okay, aye, there you go. See, I've been trained.
We haven't done it in person in so long, we forgot how to do it in person.
Wow.
There's a forgiveness bubble for another month or two when it comes to
Margaret's
public
gotta go home
meetings.
and read up.
We were thinking of coming here with like boxes around us, so we could look for maybe boxes around us.
Well,
Give me
you're-
my cabinet
that's
and my
right, you're gonna
clock,
have to
I've
get,
got my
right, and
clock
I'm gonna
and my-
have to get the train to go by in about 15 minutes and the alarm to go off. All right, well, so, all right, you have a,
So
Move
you
on
have
that.
to read why we are going. if we're
Right.
Oh, yes.
going to Executive session.
yes, and
And that
then,
requires a person.
yes, and then further on in the agenda, we do have a need to go into executive session. The board will enter executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to discuss strategy sessions in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Highway and Facilities Superintendent Transition Period Contract. And we will return to open session thereafter to adjourn.
Yep.
Now we need a roll call vote.
Yes.
Keep eye.
Stone eye.
Hawkins,
Wow,
aye.
there you go, we're even on.